folks. Where are we? Who am I?
We're live.
We are live.
Hello, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Ghost Education 101, our second panel of 2021. It's already been an interesting year, and we're only a few weeks in. But anyway, tonight we have a substitute for Martha. We have our friend John joining us. Thank you for helping us out tonight. But I'm going to start off and introduce our panel tonight. For ladies first, Alex Matsuo. If I said that correctly, I'm getting an echo.
Yep.
Stephen Woodward. We have Mr. Brad with us tonight, Brad Bradley, and John Daughtry. So we're going to just get to know each other a little bit better. I mean, I already know you guys, but a lot of people watching don't. It's been a while since we've had Brad on. And Stephen, I don't think you've been on a panel with us yet, have you?
No, not at the moment. I haven't. This is my first time to be on a panel on Ghost Ed. But yeah, I'm Stephen. I'm the owner of the Paranormal United Network, and the owner of Ghost Tech.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about those in a little bit.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, so my name's Alex Matsuo. You nailed it, Phil, so you're good. And I'm the founder and director of the Association of Paranormal Study. I've also written several books about different areas of the paranormal. I've been on Travel Channel's Most Terrifying Places in America. I currently run a blog, YouTube channel, podcast called The Spooky Stuff, and where it's basically my little spooky corner of the internet. You know, you can check out spooky stuff and everything. My team and I mainly specialize in residential cases. We also investigate public locations, and I've been doing this since I was 16. So, and I won't say how many years that's been.
Oh, just like a couple years then, really.
Just like 2 years.
So let me ask you about, yeah, I was thinking 2, maybe 3. The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting. Tell me about that book, because I love the title to it.
Yeah, so that's my latest book. It came out in November of 2019, and the title was inspired from Disney's The Haunted Mansion. So, because I love Disney and everything. Yeah, makes sense now, right? And it's basically
Several sentences.
yeah, it's basically like a ghost hunting 101 book. It's basically my like memoir of how I became a paranormal investigator, all of the mistakes that I made. I try to have like a little story with every chapter, and basically from start to finish what you should do during a paranormal investigation and what you can do before and after. And yeah, just a really solid overview of getting into the paranormal. I mainly targeted towards like new people in the field, but also I think veterans of the field can get something out of it too.
So, yeah, I was going to ask you, would this be a good book for people just getting into the paranormal investigating field?
Mm-hmm.
So you answered that. Where can they find your books? Are they Amazon, your website?
Yeah, you can find them on my website, alexmatsuo.com. But it's going to take you right to Amazon, so you can cut out the middle person and go straight to Amazon. And yeah, I mean, I also sell signed copies too. If anyone thinks I'm that cool, you can message me privately, and I can get that arranged. But yeah, definitely Amazon.
Great. Brad, so you're the research coordinator for the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation, CPRI. Can you tell everybody about that organization? And I see the logo behind you.
Yeah, that's the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation is an academic organization. It's been around since about the year 2000. And it's the oldest organization of its kind in Virginia. We tend to be more of an academic organization. we approach things through an experimental design approach. We look at it from, we look at the theory. Somebody says they see something, we get all the information around what they think they saw. Then we come up with a theory about it. And then we design experiments around that. And then we conduct the experiments, we gather all the data, and we draw our conclusions from that. Sometimes that leads to more experiments, sometimes not. But that's just the way we operate. And we do some hardcore research into stuff too. I'm a former chemist, so I tend to do more of the sensor-based data collection versus the more sociological or psychological research. But we do have, in our organization, we have people with various skill sets that can benefit the organization, so to speak. It's kind of a limited set of people in our organization. We have sociologists, we actually have archaeologists, we have historical architect, we have electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, we have data analysts from NASA, we have people that are from the medical field, from the police officer, or from the law enforcement area, that kind of thing, and they all come to play depending on what kind of experiment we're trying to run. So that's kind of how we operate. We don't do a lot of residential type setups unless we think that there's a reason to attach that to one of our existing experiment runs, or whether or not it meets one of our other research projects that we have going on. So that's kind of how we operate.
Now, when you say you don't do residential that much, do you do historic places, or are you doing people's businesses? What type of places are you experimenting
Well,
on?
sometimes we don't have to go anywhere, because the research we could do, like the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, we can access information in their library, which is really cool. That's an actual division within a major university that does paranormal research. And that's only an hour from my house. So it's pretty cool to get to go up there. But we tend to do things like, if we're going to go collect data somewhere, it tends, we go to where the experimental design will most benefit from the location. Like right now, I'm gonna tout one right now, Bacon's Castle in Surrey, Virginia. That place was built in 1665, and it's the oldest brick home in the country, and we have access to it for the last 9 years now. And we go in there, and that's like a laboratory for us, because the stuff that we're able to pick up there is consistent, of the same type, over and over and over again. So we run multiple experiments on different things while, when we go in there to collect data, and that's a couple of times a year. But that is a historical site. We go to a lot of different historical sites. Sometimes there's a business in Petersburg. It's an old luggage factory. It's 250,000 square feet. It's been abandoned for, almost 80 years. And it's still there. And a person put a small business in one little piece of it. Well, they started hearing weirdness and things like that. And so we asked, to come in. Actually, the police asked us to come and look at it first. And so we went to look at it. And then the business owners allowed us to conduct a series of experiments in there. What we found out, mostly, besides the fact that that's more activity than I've ever run into in a commercial location, is the fact that it's we almost have to wear personal protective equipment to go in this place. It's that dirty, and so we haven't gone in for a while because of that. But we have to be careful with those kind of things. But yeah, we do a lot of different sites. We did do a couple of residences within the last 5 or 6 years, and those were referrals from another organization, and we went and conducted the experiments we thought we needed to conduct there. And it turned out that we could continue that line of experimentation at this house for a while, so we did do that. But we don't typically go when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I got a demon in my closet." We don't normally do that kind of thing. We tend to go where we can conduct the right kind of experiment.
Sure. And I'm sure when you said protective equipment, you're not talking about holy water and sage and those things. So yeah.
No, we're talking about the typical, like an N95 mask
suit.
and a hazmat suit, that kind of thing.
And I want to talk to you later about your equipment because I'm sure it's a lot different from some of our K2s and things like that. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about Ghost Tech.
Yes, sir. Ghost Tech is actually 7 years ago I made Ghost Tech up because my daughter at that particular time was getting into the paranormal field. And so me and my wife and daughter just come together and actually created Ghost Tech as a paranormal team. Me myself, I was already in paranormal field for almost 20 years at that time, doing it with other teams and stuff across the country and different places that we moved to around the country. But when we finally got to Ballinger, Texas, when my daughter was actually got into the paranormal field and found out she was empathic. And so we decided it's best that I just leave the other teams I was with and create our own team, Ghost Tech, which started out as me, my wife, and my daughter. And then we got a few other people. Actually, kind of was born out of the old Park Hotel in Ballinger, Texas. Dan LaFave owns that hotel in Ballinger.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of was born out of that because we used to, as Ghost Tech, volunteer for their Halloween haunted house there every year. And so we met a few other people that were like-minded in the paranormal field and found out they had different take on things, different way they do things. So we added them into the Ghost Tech team to diversify, and that way it wouldn't look like it was just a straight family team. And from that point on, it kind of got more into the techie part of it, into the tech. But with me and my background, it has always been about research. Research was the number one thing that I was on. And I was teaching my daughter about different ways of research and how to use her skills as well and getting her involved with other people in the field. And one night it just blew up to something bigger than I thought it was ever going to be. And then we were pretty reputable team in that area, and we got to actually start traveling around the country and doing locations all around the country. Wow. And then just from that point, it blew up to something else, and we'll get into that later. That you'll probably ask a question on that.
Yeah. How old was your daughter when she started getting the itch?
My daughter, well, she has always been empathic. Back when she was about 3 years old, I walked into a bedroom at a house that we were living in Mississippi when I was a military contractor. So I was working on a military base there, and it was an older house. And I walked into the bedroom there, and she was having a full-on conversation and saying stuff that only I would know about my brother that passed away.
Oh, wow.
About 5 years before she was even born. And just saying stuff that only, like I said, only I would know about. And there, because we never talked about my brother at all while she was little, and she was like having full-on conversation. So that's when I knew she had something. And that was, like I said, she was about 3 years old. But it wasn't until she was about 15 years old when she really took an interest into the paranormal field. And she has had probably one of the most dramatic experiences that you could have as a paranormal investigator at the old Park Hotel. My daughter is the famous one that was in the back room of that hotel back when she was 19 years old. 19 years old investigating there. We matter of fact, it was a couple years back. She was the one investigating at the hotel in the back room back in front of the location owner himself, Dan LaFave, and the rest of the Ghost Tech team. Plus, we were also hosting an event for the public. So we had about 5 or 6 people in the public all looking inside that room. And at that particular time, all the cameras everything, lights, everything went to dark. And when that happened, she was picked up out of a chair and lifted all the way to the ceiling and then launched across the room about 7 feet against a wall. And that's when we immediately got her out of the
Oh.
building and took her outside and get her some protection.
I think everyone probably should have left the building at that point.
I think everybody did.
That's wow. And of course the cameras are off. They always do that. They know how to manipulate that when they're going to do something nasty. It's aggravating. But yeah, go ahead.
There's one thing with that though. All right, so there was one last picture that was taken at the door before everything went dead that shows her sitting in a chair and starting to get lifted up. And then there was a camera that's about, I want to say 80 yards down the hallway, because it's a long hallway. 80 yards down the hallway that was actually panned down to the end of the room that actually caught the aftermath of it. Caught, the sounds and all that, and then us rushing up the hallway with her out. But as far as all the equipment in the room, all of it went dead at the same time.
That's terrifying. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's terrifying. I mean, we all live to see that kind of thing, but
yeah,
when it happens, we're terrified. Of course, it's never happened to me. Now, most people, if they would have walked into their daughter's room at 3 years old and heard that conversation, they would have freaked out, gone to the internet and looked up a paranormal team. But you, already being in the paranormal, probably stayed calm and knew what was going on. That's
exactly.
great. That's great. Good for her. So, John, you're the creator of HSFL Paranormal. Can you tell us what that stands for?
So originally I had designed that channel for my YouTube and the following social media. I was going to do like strictly spirit box sessions originally with that channel. And it, of course, developed into me quickly realizing that I like traveling and investigating more than just doing spirit box sessions. I've been in the paranormal for 8 years. I developed HSFL by myself as a just solo project to have fun and kind of create videos, go to haunted locations, and do these spirit box sessions. And I used to test various different spirit boxes and different apps back in the early parts of my channel, and kind of realized that apps are not really legit for the most part. Except there's been a couple of times where I've had some strange circumstances with one of those apps, but I'm not going to get too focused on that. HSFL stands for Helping Spirits Find Light, is what the HSFL stands for. And originally it was I had this kind of intuition that when my friend died in 2015, he never crossed over. And it was a little bit of a tribute towards him to help get him to cross over. I don't feel that he isn't. I don't feel like he's around as much anymore, which I'm hoping over the conversations that I had using the spirit box with him that I was able to help him at least try to transition. And I don't feel him around me as much. So maybe he crossed over, maybe he went to some other place, I don't know. But yeah, it was originally kind of a tribute.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
if you don't feel him around as much anymore, he's probably moved on and doing well and may come back to visit you later when he's got things worked out.
Right.
So, Alex, how did you get started in the paranormal? What got you interested, first off?
Well, I had experiences when I was a kid, like most of us do with our origin stories, as I like to say. And I always had an interest in it after that, but my mother wasn't quite so excited about me being interested in it. Like, she had this rule of like, no paranormal, no occult, nothing scary in the house. And of course, when you tell a kid that, the first thing they're going to do is want to seek it out more. So I was, I was checking out scary stories to tell in the dark. I mean, I was watching Are You Afraid of the Dark on Snick growing up. And finally, when I was old enough to drive, I started going ghost hunting. Not to completely date myself, but go like the dawn of ghost hunters like started right when I was in high school. So as soon as I was able to drive, that was when I was really going out and like trying to investigate. And I kind of use that term loosely because it was going to cemeteries and emulating what I saw on TV. So yeah, but I maintained a fairly strong interest in it. Then I had some freaky experiences when I was about 18, and then again when I was about 19, 20 years old. So I took a step back from it, focused on college. And then after I got my master's degree, I was really interested in getting back into it. But I wanted to take it a step further because I didn't really have a team helping me when I was having my issues, and teams were sprouting up all over the place. And I was going to join a team, but because my schedule was so inconsistent and insane, I decided to just start my own because then I only have to be accountable to myself. So I shadowed a few teams just to kind of see if I liked it, if this was something I wanted to do. And they were totally cool with it. I was just upfront and honest and said, I just want to know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to go all in. And yeah, 2011, I started my team and we've been going ever since. Really, it was just those childhood experiences and someone telling me no for several years that really got me interested in it. And then once I was in it, I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool. I think this is something I really want to be a part of, whether it's me like just going ghost hunting on the weekends or having a team. Yeah, it was just something that I have always been drawn to.
How many are on your team?
Right now we have seven people. I've had as many as 12.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, I've had as many as 12, and it's like herding
That's a lot to, that's a lot to,
yeah.
how many guys and how many girls?
6 girls, 1 guy. And he's the
Really?
husband of one of my team members. And actually that was never like intentional. Yeah, it was never intentional. It just kind of worked out that way. Although when my team first started, we started when I was living in San Diego, and I had all men and they were all in the military. So majority being Marines, like all Marines, 1 sailor. So which really taught me a different way of investigating. I mean, I grew up in a military town. I've dated people in the military. So, I mean, I'm not, and my grandfather was in the Air Force. I'm not unfamiliar with that life. So, yeah. So, just having that like dynamic for the first couple years of the team was really cool. And then it wasn't until I moved out to North Carolina that the team dynamic did a switch and it became like, it was all female for a while. And now we have 1 guy.
That'd be a great paranormal show. All Marines, a team of Marines. I'd
Right?
watch it.
There is actually,
That'd be
from what
cool.
I've heard, there is a couple of veteran only teams.
Yeah, there are.
Wow.
And well, when I was in San Diego, there was an all Marine Corps team at Camp Pendleton.
Oh wow.
Because we had a few residential cases in Camp Pendleton, and we found out we weren't the first team to be at that spot. So
wow.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's a group
Good
out
topic for
of
that show.
near Fort Campbell, Kentucky, called Military Veterans Paranormal. Melanie Ramsey is part of that group. She's a hoot, by the way. If you ever get a chance to talk to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, some of the first cases I did out in North Carolina were in Jacksonville, North Carolina, on the base.
No kidding! I used to live in Wilmington.
Man, you and I have this like weird like
I know. We both lived in California and we ended up moving to North Carolina. And then I moved back to California and then now back to Georgia.
And I'm from North Carolina and I live in Georgia.
so weird.
I was stationed in North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
It's close enough. So, Brad, I'm curious. You are a scientific person, chemist, formulas, got to have proof. How on earth did you get involved in paranormal and ghosts? I mean, I don't know if I ever asked you that. That's just fascinating to me. It's like a doctor, trying to get a doctor to believe in the afterlife.
Yeah, I mean, I actually stumbled on it. I was a fan of the Ghost Hunters TV show early on, the very first seasons of it, and basically the whole reason I was a fan was to see if the stuff that they did, if they would actually show when they found nothing versus when they found something, and they did back then. Now they don't, but back then they did. And then when my wife got me a ticket to go to go to an event that Jason and Grant had at their inn in New Hampshire, and there were only like 30 people at that whole event, and so I got to talk to Grant quite a bit. Now Jason, he was a little aloof. He stood, was away. They owned the inn, so they were actually working at the time we were having this event too. And so I got to talk to Grant quite a bit. And then I actually saw something in that inn I couldn't explain. Because I was a huge skeptic. I thought I was fanboying it. I wasn't doing, I wasn't planning on doing any kind of investigation or anything like that. I had no gear, nothing. And I was up there, and John Zaffis was there, and he was actually part leading the tour group we were in. He put us in this room in this coach house. It was me and another guy my age, and his 9-year-old daughter, and we were standing in this room, and all the lights were out, and all of a sudden something walks between us and the window. I could see head, shoulders, hat, everything walk right past us, between us and the window. I didn't know what the heck I saw. I mean, I and the guy that was, and the other guy I was with were like levitating back towards the door, trying to find the light switch, and his daughter ran after it, whatever it was, and started feeling on the wall. And because we turned on the light and there was nothing there.
Good for her.
And so at that point, I didn't know what the heck I saw. And I was like, I got to find out what the heck that was. And so I got with Grant. He actually knew the founder of the organization I'm part of now. It's Bobby Atrestein. She was the founder. She's a friend of Grant's and Jason's. And so he got me involved with her, and the rest is history, I guess.
And you've probably never seen anything like that since. It's usually the way it goes. It gets you hooked, and then no, you have. That's good.
Oh yeah. St. Albans Sanatorium. I'm standing at the top of the grand staircase there, and I look to my left, and there's a guy standing there looking at me. I mean, I could see the stubble on his face. I could see the jacket he was wearing, his hairstyle, everything. And I thought it was a homeless guy that had snuck into the building while we were there. So I ran after him, and everybody was running behind me, and he ran down the hallway. And by the time I rounded the corner down the hallway, he was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, that's different. Okay. But then, that's been the only other time I've had something like that.
That's why I've started wearing a body cam. Turn it on when I get out of the car, and I turn it off once I get back in the car. Of course, I got an EVP in St. Augustine getting out of the car at the lighthouse on my body cam. I won't say what it said. It was kind of rude, but that's really cool. So, Stephen, let's talk about pun. Tell us what, how, when, where.
Yeah, okay. So Pun TV is the Paranormal United Network. It started out roughly 7 years ago, back when I started Ghost Tech, basically. I kind of started on both at the same time, to be honest. Um, it actually started out as the Paranormal United Movement. And then, roughly 2 years ago, John, turned into the Paranormal United Network. And that's when we got the idea of doing this right here, live streaming. Actually, there was something a little bit before that, but we won't get into that.
Yeah.
That me and John were involved in, and you knew all about that, Phil. But yeah, that kind of was the birth of the Paranormal or Pun TV, so to speak. But actually, it was more or less the Paranormal United movement it was designed where back at this time during the paranormal was the drama stuff that we were having in the paranormal was teams having like turf wars or like stuff like, this is our area, you don't mess with our stuff, and they would do stuff to sabotage teams and so on. That was the drama we had back then, and now 2020 happened, which is the drama's totally different. But yeah, that's the Paranormal United movement, was to draw all of us together to avoid that type of drama and show people that we can all come together, share our ideas, share our findings. Matter of fact, go get help or get ways to get teams to go help, in certain areas that we can't be at the time. Like I'm in New Mexico and I've got a case in Georgia. John hits Georgia and so on, but we have a whole network for that with people all over the country that does that. But that's what it was initially designed for, that we come together with our findings, our ideas, and the way we do research and the way we've narrowed down to some of the old stuff that doesn't work anymore to the newer stuff that does work now. And with 4G and 5G that's in our that we're dealing with right now, which that also we've kind of found out that kind, like the old KT meters, it kind of interferes with our equipment. So now we're trying to find different equipment to use that doesn't get interfered by 4G and all that. So that's how Paranormal United movement came along, and that's when I guess me and John's known each other like 4 years now, in which he was a famous YouTuber and I was a YouTuber also, and so we kind of come together and decide that we would make a platform. At that time, I was on Paranormal Warehouse, and John was on Paranormal Warehouse as well. And we kind of come together, made our own shows and stuff, and we decided we were just going to have a platform. And kind of what we did with the Paranormal Network is made it into a platform, but not only that, it's like field support. So being a platform, we use our host, all the hosts that we got. I think it's like 40 hosts, and Philip, you being one of our hosts. We have like mini Paracons all around the country that we host events at. I think this year, as long as the COVID holds off, we might be able to have a few Paracons events and stuff like that. But it's all for, the Paranormal United Network, and it's for us smaller people. It's not for, we're not doing these events to bring these people in that are television personalities and stuff like that. We're making our host and the people that are less talked about the talent, the stars of this field. And we have a lot of bright people in this field, a lot of people that knows that's very knowledgeable in this field, and a lot of people that I trust and go to. And like I said, you'll probably get with John with this, and we'll kind of go together how we came together and decide to make this network and make it work for us. And me and John's become very good friends. Even though, we live miles apart and so on, California, I'll stay.
All of a sudden I get a call from Philip, and he goes, "Hey, I'm going down to St. Augustine." I was like, "Cool, where can we meet up?" So I ended up just hopping on Highway 75 and driving just straight south. I'm like, cool, I get another chance to go to St. Augustine and meet another cool, great investigator. And it was a blast.
Oh my God, we had so much fun.
Well,
I mean, we just met and took off and started live streaming downtown. It was great. Halloween night.
Oh yeah, and then we met up with that other ghost hunting crew, and that was cool.
We met other ghost hunter people. It was just like, oh, just like, you know, you just drawn to each other.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what kind of cameras do you use? No, what do you use? What kind of recorder is that? Oh, it was great.
And it was cool because
how many shows are on Pun right
That's
now?
John.
Oh, that's not a question
man.
for me. How many shows are on Pun? I think we have what, probably 12 or 15.
Hold on, I'm getting there. I'll officially get there. Give me time. Go to John. I'll come back with that.
And if someone wants to put a show on Pun, a paranormal show, like, you know, Ghost Ed, we didn't start out with going to Pun, but we didn't know about Pun, and now we're streaming on Pun. How do people go about?
You just go onto our Facebook page and leave a message for us saying, hey, you know what, I'm interested in hosting a stream on your platform. Just get with one of us and somebody will always respond. We have, I think, 8 admins or something and probably just as many mods. So just send us a message. I wasn't aware until that the other network that, you know, most people are aware of, you had to pay to have your show on there. I did not know that. Yep. Yeah, with that.
I did not know you had to pay.
Paranormal Warehouse, yeah, you had to pay a pretty penny to post on their site.
Well, yeah, I had to pay when we had our show. But to answer your question, Philip, we have 25 shows, 25 weekly shows that have a time slot on the Paranormal Network.
See, I was far off.
And we're looking for more shows.
About the shows from a couple years ago.
All right, let's ask Brad. I want to ask you something about equipment. Give me a list of your basic equipment when you go to just not a specific experiment you're setting up, but just to say a normal investigation you're going to do. What's your go-to basic equipment that you're using?
Well, I got to preface that because we don't have a basic list. We got to, we have to, even if we just go on an investigation, we have to design the experiment first. And that's one of our primary things. But the equipment is defined by the experiment that we're going to run. We don't use hardly anything that you would find from ghost hunting shops. We don't use anything like that because the experiments we tend to run, if we have to use equipment, sometimes an experiment just requires a pencil and paper. But if the experiment we run requires some kind of equipment, more than likely it's going to be stuff you can find in an earth science lab or a physics lab or a chemistry lab even, because I've got a nice little tool here that measures volatile organics when I start looking for phantom smells, that kind of thing. So the thing that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of equipment we typically have. Now there's one piece of equipment that we've found that was first advertised as a ghost hunting tool. We initially poo-pooed the thing because we couldn't get any of the information on their sensors that they used or calibration data or anything like that. So we couldn't use it for anything that we did. Well, then all of a sudden I get this stuff in my email with all that information. And lo and behold, it's that EDI, because basically all it does is it data logs temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, light, electromagnetic field, vibration, stuff like that. And that's exactly what we were using as part of our experimental design for the line of study we were doing it was based on what the perception of paranormal activity. Yeah, there you go. The perception of paranormal activity and the environment kind of thing. And that was the line of study we were doing. And what's really cool is that there's only one problem with it. It's a cool piece of equipment to have with you because it does a lot of stuff at once. But at the same time, its sampling rate is only 1 sample per second. And we're finding that a lot of these events are micro events, and they happen like within milliseconds. So we're missing stuff. We believe it or not, the magnetometer on your phone is better to use in a location to look at magnetic field data versus the EDI because of that very thing. But if you're wanting background data, that's fine. The vibration data. And Stephen, you were talking about how all your equipment died that one time. Part of our study, we were looking at all the data we were getting was for what most people call residual. And I got a paper up on academia.edu about this. And it looked like it was all residual, and it always did the same thing. All the data was so reproducible. It was just unbelievable. I mean, you never get data that reproducible when you're writing a dissertation or a thesis. You just don't. And but it was so reproducible. So we're looking at, this kind of data here is what we get when there's non-interactive residual type activity. Then we noticed that we got these oddball sets of data around when doors opened, voices talked to us by name, the people were touched. When that kind of thing happened, we call that interactive activity. And that has a whole different set of data coming out of these sensors. And a lot of it focuses around ionizing radiation spikes and geomagnetic field shifts. And we were collecting that data around a place in Bacon's Castle at this door that has opened on us in the past. The doorknob will turn, the whole thing will open. It's pretty cool. And and especially when it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you're standing right next to it. But depends, children. Always wear Depends. But after that, though, we had a bunch of equipment sitting right in that doorway. Well, we were downstairs on the 2nd floor, and we heard somebody run across the floor above us, right where this door was. Well, we ran upstairs, and we noticed every piece of equipment we had right there was off. It was dead, except for one. That EDI was still on, and that's because it's RF shielded. And that's the only reason it was still on. And we found out too, because it was measuring EMF at the time. At the exact time all that equipment went off, it died. There was an electromagnetic pulse there 1,000 times higher than what can do damage to the human brain. And it happened in a split second, bam, and it killed every piece of equipment we had there. And so that was just a little anecdotal type thing regarding the EDI, John. Around what happened with you, Stephen, with all that equipment dying like that, we're actually seeing that there is a bit of an electromagnetic pulse that hits. Plus, there's a spike in ionizing radiation. It's almost like there's an Einstein-Rosen bridge opening up. That's exactly what it's like. And I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. That's a wormhole. I mean, when they create those micro black holes at CERN, they get a shift in magnetic field, a spike in magnetic field. And they also get a spike in ionizing radiation because of the particle explosion that happens. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Wow. But we don't have enough data yet to look at reproducibility and correlation. It just anecdotally, it happens at the same time. We might have maybe a dozen or so pieces, incidents where that's happened. Whereas when we were looking at the residual stuff, we had literally tens of thousands of data sets we could look at. We've only got like a dozen. So we need to get more data around this, but you know as well as I do how hard that's going to be, because, if something wants to open that door, it's not going to do it when you want them to. So we almost have to blanket a location with equipment and hope for the best. You know, that's kind of what we have to do.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
That's interesting that you mentioned those magnetic pulses, because I had a near-death experience back in 2013, and my heart actually stopped, and I was brought back with via electricity and them jump-starting my heart. Ever since that incident, I've been able to almost predict to the T when those events are about to happen. I can feel that energy switch, and I've been able to do it since probably back in 13. But more, I've noticed that before those events occur, I have this like almost like vertigo effect, and I almost kind of lose my balance. And I've been able to predict with multiple times. Steven's seen me do it in New Mexico, and a couple other investigators I've worked with. They'll be like, "John, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, something just shifted," and then a spike in activity happens.
There's an actual medical condition known as magnetic field sensitivity or EMF sensitivity. And it will do exactly what you're saying, John. We have a guy in our organization. I'm not going to out him, but he's very sensitive to changes in magnetic field. As a matter of fact, he'll get so physically sick when he walks into a high EMF above like 10 milligauss or higher that he'll have to go out and sit for a couple of hours and get away from it. That's how bad he is. Bad off it is. So if we go into a house that's got a bad wiring, he knows immediately. And when we went into this one house where there was a crazy lady, but anyway, we went into this one house and we walked down this hallway, and it hit him like a sledgehammer. And he goes, I can't be right here. I'm about to fall down and my head's killing me. So he went outside, and it turns out the electrical junction box was right on the other side of the wall, and it was putting out 100 plus milligauss EMF coming out of that wall. So, you know, he's like our canary. We send him in, he finds it, then we go in and check. Sure enough, that's what it is, you know. No, I wouldn't do that to him. He's a heck of a guy. But he's an electrical engineer. And that's weird because he's affected by this, but he's an electrical engineer too.
Right.
So, go figure. Right. But yeah, he's one of the original members of this organization. He got in there way before I did. So.
Cool.
That's one, an important thing that you must do when you go to any investigation. We do what we call these baseline readings, is check the EMF through the whole building and see what the levels are, because your client can be saying, oh, I'm getting nauseous, over here. It can create all kinds of things that aren't paranormal, but they're perceiving as paranormal because the EMF is so high. So it's just really important that you, as an investigator, do your due diligence at a client's house or anywhere else for collecting data, and check what the EMF is.
I had actually been at a location one time, and the customer kept thinking that she was being attacked by a spirit, and she kept getting dizzy and nauseous and sick. Well, it ended up not being a spirit in her house. It was a cracked heat exchanger in her heating unit up in the attic. And her house was actually like 350 parts per million of carbon monoxide leaking into her house.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one of those detectors too that we carry around. It actually data logs over time. And me being a chemist, that's one of the first things I look for. But it's always good, and what you were talking about, Phil, it's always good to, if you don't have medical professionals as part of your organization, that you have medical professionals you can reach out to for consulting, because they're the subject matter experts on things like that. We actually had a case where there was a fellow was being told by another group that his house was inhabited by demons and stuff like that, and at that point the guy was going to kill himself. What they didn't realize was this guy had a severe head injury, was on 6 antipsychotic meds, and so his wife called us in for a second opinion. We went down there, we found the meds, we shot pictures of them to one of the medical professionals in our organization. They identified what the meds were, what they were for. So we immediately changed our tone, told them exactly what was going on there. They had high EMF right next to the head of their bed. That's why they were seeing, that's why that one guy was seeing stuff out in the hallway. So we told them about that. Yeah. Everything was calmed down. Everything was taken care of. And then we went on. But that's why you need to be able to reach out to psychologists, sociologists, medical professionals of all types, even at the EMT level, because we have fire and EMT folks in our organization too. So we can actually sometimes when we go to a location like that, if there's somebody that's displaying odd behavior, we have a mandatory reporter with us at these things. And we like to take a police officer with us. There's because you never know what you're going to walk into. I walked into locations and there's a hash pipe sitting on the ground there, and it just got used. Not that I would know what that smelled like, but that it had just been used. And so that right there, if you have a mandatory reporter with you, they can identify stuff like that pretty quick, and then we can go ahead and change our whole mode of operation at that point.
A lot of people, it's very important to check around people's headboards for EMF. Like I put my EDI where my head sleeps. I have a digital alarm clock that's through the roof EMF. I have a fan that blows. I have to sleep with a lot of noise because of stupid tinnitus in my ear, so I need to drown everything out. But I put the EDI where I put my head, and then I keep moving everything outwards until it reaches 0 where I'm sleeping. Because you can have a ton of EMF from just clock. I've got like 8 outlets with stuff plugged in, Bluetooth speaker, my phone, my atomizer. You can be killing yourself and not even knowing it. So it's very important
Wi-Fi
for us
alone.
when we do this.
Wi-Fi alone,
Yeah,
you have to. Your meter won't stop going off until you're at least 10 feet away from it, if not more, depending on how strong your Wi-Fi router is.
And the type of EMF that really affects the human body tends to be between 50 and 100 hertz. So that's where you really need to look for that. That's where all the studies have shown that does the most damage to the human brain, and causes you to have reactions and things like that. When my wife is near a computer screen for too long, and she's been doing that a lot because she's getting her PhD right now, she ends up with a migraine. And it's not because of the visual type stuff or anything. It's she's too close to that EMF. And I checked, and it's pushing. It's right where she's sitting. It's sitting right at 50 milligauss.
Oh,
and so I'm trying to figure out a way around that.
that's
So anyway, that's the there's inherent things physically that can cause people to see things. You touched on the carbon monoxide poisoning thing, because that has come up before too. But it's always when you take that air sample though, and you come up with that, be careful, because if you're not familiar enough with the equipment and to understand what it's telling you, if you give that person the wrong information, you are really close to committing fraud or gross negligence. So you need to be very careful about that.
I used to actually be a certified heating and air conditioning technician, and so I had the equipment because I purchased it. I just happened to have it in my truck because I wanted to rule something out.
Well, I'm not talking about you, John. I'm talking about the general public. What you have a lot of people that go and buy these things at Harbor Freight or someplace like that, and they go out and they say, oh, look, it's blinking light, you got all this stuff in your house, when that may not even mean that. And that, like those people that were telling that guy that he had demons in his house, that's actually being litigated. So that right there, you got to be very careful with what you tell people about things like that.
There are printable charts on the internet. Just look them up for the levels of carbon monoxide acceptable, not that you can print off and carry with you. I've got one in my Paranormal Bible that I've printed off like a couple different copies, and I mean
there's not a whole lot of acceptable levels of carbon monoxide, and the problem with carbon monoxide is it slowly builds up in your bloodstream over time, and it's not like something that you just get exposed to and it goes away. No, it keeps building. So if you're constantly exposed to 100 parts per million, that's going to keep stacking up. And what ended up happening is I got stuck in a house when I was working for heating and air conditioning. I got exposed to over 10 minutes of 750 parts per million, which is like the halfway point of being fatal. And the only reason I knew something was wrong is because my coworker passed out in the attic, and I had to bring him down fireman status out of the attic space and get him outside, where we both came out of it and started puking. And we ended up having to go through a $30,000 procedure where they extract your bone marrow to check for the levels of carbon monoxide. We ended up getting discharged within
Right.
24 hours.
So you're now touching on the dangers of going into home environments, because you do not
Yeah.
know what you're getting into.
Right.
Yeah.
The and if you have a CO detector with you and it's handheld, if you hold that above your waist, guess what? It's not going to read any CO. The CO is heavier than air, and it tends to hover around the floor. The only way you're going to get it is if the entire room is full of carbon monoxide.
Yep.
You know, the major
Right.
portion of it's going to be down close to the floor. And there's a lot of people that think they can get that detector, just walk around and wave it around too. And it's like, you can't do that with that detector because of the sensor that's built into it. It's just like an EMF detector, any kind of magnetometer. You can't wave it around
Right.
like that. You've got to hold it still, and it's got to be static for it to work right.
Yeah.
So that, there's a whole lot that goes into it. So, as an important safety tip, boys and girls, is don't think you can just go out and buy this stuff and use it without the education behind it. That's the important thing.
Amen.
Because if you
Yes.
don't have that, you could actually hurt somebody.
Oh yeah.
And some of those actually require certifications to even use.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
See, boys and girls, it's not always the demons that you've got to worry about hurting you. 'Cause 9 times out of the 10, it's going to be something else.
It's gonna be
But
like
I hope
human
everybody's
created.
I hope everybody saw a
It's
few weeks
everything
ago,
around
they
us.
Syntex that makes the EDI had a sale. They were $165. I have never seen them that low, so I posted it on GhostEd. I hope everybody took advantage of that because they're usually $199. And I grabbed a second one at that price because I've never seen it that low before. So I hope everybody saw that post on GhostEd and grabbed one up.
I
And
paid
I had
2
mine
for
within, like,
$400, so that's quite a steal. So
Yeah, I've never seen them that low. All right, so let's get into some investigating things. Alex, what is the scariest thing that's ever happened to you on an investigation?
By a ghost?
Uh,
Okay.
Just the one that sticks out that terrified you or moved you the most.
That's a good question. I'd have to say it was probably when I was uh at this location called the Trivet Clinic. It's in Hamptonville, North Carolina, so definitely out in the boonies. And it's reported that there's over 70 ghosts at this location, and that's debatable, but it used to be a clinic, and it was like a little small town clinic. It's where you got your tonsils taken out, it's where women gave birth. So, and then it became a supper club and then a detox clinic, kind of an ironic story there. And then it became a senior home a couple times, and then it became a residence. But yeah, so the doctor who started the Trivet Clinic, Dr. William Trivet, he was married to a woman named Gwen, and Gwen was kind of an alcoholic. She was a very frequent customer of the supper club, and what I found out was they had actually moved down to North Carolina from the north to take care of Dr. Trivet's parents. And she had this love of opera. She was an opera singer. She loved opera. Opera was part of her life. And whenever we go on investigations, we try to bring things that are a little bit that are contextual for the spirits. So we're looking like 1930s, 1940s. And we actually found like a Bluetooth record player that looks vintage. And so it was like the end of the night, and one night I'm like, you know what, let's play some opera. Let's see if Gwen is around, because no one has ever really tried to talk to her. And so I got out some opera, and we took our we have to redo baseline readings when that happens, because we're using a Bluetooth device. So just to get an idea of like, okay, how is this going to affect our equipment, because we don't want false positives and that sort of thing. So so we took our baseline readings, and we moved all of our EMF detecting equipment to the other side of the room. This was in a basement, so pretty big. No other electricity, no Wi-Fi. So we're like, okay, let's play. Let's continue playing the music. So got out Puccini's La Boheme, Musetta's Waltz, because I'm a theater person, and I was thinking, okay, I don't know opera, Rent, okay, Musetta's Waltz. so so I knew that much. And I haven't seen anything like it, and I still haven't seen anything since. But when I just said, Gwen, we're gonna, if you're here, we would love to hear you sing. We know you loved opera, that kind of thing. And we just started playing, and about 5 minutes later, all of our equipment started going off, like like one at a time, like throughout the room. Like it was almost like she was walking around, type of a thing. At least that's what I was kind of visualizing in my head. It was the weirdest thing, but and also I'm not really one to I'm a very much a wallflower during investigations. I try to keep myself emotionally neutral. And during that, like tears just started coming out of my eyes. And it was like one of those really like moving things. And so it had lasted for about 2 or 3 minutes, but it was really moving and remarkable. And then afterwards, the skeptic in me was like, well, maybe it was the music. Maybe it was like the swelling of the music. Let's play some Van Halen. So we just started blasting Van Halen afterwards, because I'm like, if anything's gonna like make things move, like it's gonna be Van Halen. And so we played Van Halen afterwards, and nothing happened. We played Musetta's Waltz again, nothing happened. And I'm like, okay. So that was probably one of the most, not scary, but it was a very emotionally charged moment for my investigating career. So yeah. So
I love these stories. I love hearing about people's experiences.
Van Halen and Musetta's
John, what about you? It's like when my friend Eric flashed everybody, flashed the spirits at the prison. It made everything start lighting up. Then sometimes those trigger things work.
Oh god.
True story. John,
As
how about
far
you?
as scary, I probably have to say an attachment that I had gotten from an investigation at a residential house that we really had no purpose being at, to be honest. But nobody else would help them, and so we decided to go. And I thought this was just some kind of residual haunting, and no, the lady was dicking around with the Ouija board for like 6.5 years and ended up releasing something really unpleasant in her house. Anyway, I ended up carrying part of that energy back with me to my house, where it terrorized me for like over 5 months. And it was leaving deep scratches across my throat, claw marks in my hand. It was messing with my dog. I had a medium over who said that there was a creature who was crawling on all fours, and it was like this black, like, I was like not human, let's just put it that way. And it was so bad to the point where I got so depressed from it and frightened for my own safety and that of my family's, that I almost like moved out. And then I realized it was probably attached to me and not the house. And so basically my last result was getting a hold of a Catholic priest and having him come over. And he was this 85-year-old guy from the missions in California. It was the only people that I knew that might be able to help do an exorcism. Whatever he did after the third time he was there ended up going away. And it was like that, and it never came back. And
That's
so
good.
I
Glad it
can't
worked.
I can't explain what happened, but it was terrifying. That was the first time I almost quit the paranormal field because of that.
Hmm. Well, we're glad you didn't. We thank the priest for coming by and
Oh yeah.
getting things straightened out. All right, Stephen, what's the scariest thing that you've encountered besides other people in the
Um,
paranormal?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've never really been scared. I've never had anything to scare me.
That's
For
good.
one thing, when I go into the paranormal field, I go into it with an open mind. Of course, go into it with a skeptical mind as well. But yes, I watched other people stuff happen to them. Let's just say alarming situations, but scary. I've never been really scared. There's never been a point where I'm just screaming down the hallway like just scared or anything like that. Um, but like I said again, alarming situations, yes. I've seen people be possessed, which was very alarming. That's something I would say a little bit more than scare. That is something that gets you to your core, but that's also being prepared and knowing what to do and being able to handle that situation. But thank God I've never had that. I've never had a scary encounter.
That's great. Although being scared sometimes can really get you motivated.
I want to get scared.
Depends. Where it depends.
Brad, so being a science guy, has there anything happened to you other than that first experience where that whatever walked in front of you? Something that happened that made you think, I don't know if I should be doing this or not. Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Well, I've been doing this since 2010, and I've only had a couple of things that have affected me to the point where I question my participation. One of them was at the Mayflower building at Penhurst. We were asked to go up there and check some stuff out. We ran some of our typical, at that time we were right in the middle of our perception of activity and their environmental consequences, that kind of thing. And we were right in the middle of that study. On the third floor of that building, there's no power. It was dark. I was up there right at the top of the steps, stairwell, setting up some sensors and some data loggers, and had my headlamp on, and down at the far end of the hallway, and those hallways are pretty long if you've ever been in that building. And I heard what sounded like metal screeching, almost like moving a metal desk across a concrete floor kind of stuff. And then I heard shuffling down there too. I'm like, huh. Now you can hear all this on the recorder I've got running. Our cameras weren't turned on yet. And because our DVR was one floor below me, and they were working on trying to get power to it. And so I'm standing there, I'm like, huh. So you can hear me go down the steps, and you hear me talk to the guys on the one floor below us. And I said, hey, are you guys hear all that up there? And they said, no, we didn't hear anything. And I said, oh, okay, well, there's something moving down there. So I start helping him with the power. And then one of the other guys comes up, and he's messing around with some more data loggers and stuff that he wanted to set up. And all of a sudden it happened again. You can hear it on the recorder. And he goes, huh. And he goes walking down the steps. He goes, did you guys hear it? And it's like, no, we didn't hear anything. So now three of us decide to walk up there, and we're standing in the light of all of our data loggers because they give off light. So we're standing in the light of those things, and all of a sudden we hear it again. Well, I decided I can't see down there. My headlamp didn't shine that far. So I stepped beyond the light. And as I stepped beyond the light and I go into the dark, something came down the hallway at me with its arms up like this. I fell. Every data logger we had gave freaky readings like crazy. And the other two guys flipped on their flashlights, and there's nothing there except me on the floor. So I got up, and I was like really startled because I'm not used to having something come at me out of the dark like that. And my hand's doing this. So I go back down to our headquarters, which is down on the first floor, and I stay down there for about an hour until I calm down a little bit. Then I went back up there, and nothing else happened after that up there, which was crazy. It just all of a sudden it was just one burst of activity. So that right there was kind of freaky. The other one is kind of one that we can't talk about. We had to turn it over to clergy, if you get my drift, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. So, but anyway, those are the only two instances where I've ever been concerned about my participation. So,
Do you have a religious background at all? Were you no?
no. I mean, I'm a
Okay.
member of the Methodist Church, but beyond that, I mean, I'm not a lay minister or what have you or anything like that. It's just, the stuff that was happening, we couldn't deal with.
Gotcha. So, Alex, what is the most memorable client-based investigation that you've had?
Ooh,
Looks
that's
like-
a good question. Huh. Okay. Well, let's see. It was actually back in my San Diego.
Whether it was
days.
a haunting or a crazy client. Say that
This-
again. Sorry.
Yeah, so this one was from my San Diego days. I had to pick one. We already covered a lot of high EMF ones, and this one, I had one client in Cary who was a tech support person who had literally her house was full of like computers and monitors. So that, but she was certain she had a demon. But probably the craziest client one I've ever had. This was back in San Diego during my San Diego days, on base in Camp Pendleton. There was a family. They had moved out of their bedrooms on the second floor, and they were all sleeping as a family in the living room because they were too scared to sleep in their bedrooms. It started with the son, who was about 5 or 6. He said he kept seeing an old man in his closet, and the dad had just come back from deployment. He had a teddy bear from one of his fallen comrades. It had like a piece of his clothing on the teddy bear, like memorial type of thing. Southern Baptist husband, married to a Wiccan witch. So there was a little bit of spiritual turbulence there, especially when it came to, we were trying to figure out what it was, because it wasn't your typical spirit. I mean, I don't have abilities, but I can pick up on like darker stuff for some reason. Maybe it's because just previous experience. It's just like I feel a similar vibration to it. And I felt that, and so I'm like, I think we might be dealing with something a little darker here, but I don't know for sure. This could just be me being paranoid. So being brought in, people were brought in psychologists. We brought in somebody who is into the paranormal, but is also a child social worker. So, with interviewing the son, just trying to get some more information. When it came to the noises, I mean, we were able to find a home inspector for on base that was able to look at the house, because it was technically a duplex because it was attached to another house. So nobody could figure out no one could tell us for sure what was happening. So, and in the meantime, we were having some really weird things happening to us at home. Like 2 of my team members who were working at the same base, over in Miramar, they saw a swarm of bees come after, they saw a swarm of bees come after them and start attacking them, but no one else that they were working with saw the bees. Like their comrades were looking at them like,
That's great.
what are you freaking out about? And then at my house, I was seeing shadow people in my house, and I'm used to transients, coming through anyway, but this case, it was very different. Even to the point where my mom said, like, because I lived with her at the time, because college, college debt, and she was like, Alex, if your friends are going to be staying over, you can put them in the guest room. They don't have to be like in the living room walking around. And I'm like, no one's staying over. So a lot of, and one of my other team members was having really weird dreams, and so it was starting to affect us in our personal lives. And then the son started saying that the old man in the closet wanted to hurt me and my other team, one of my other team members. And when you get to that point, I'm like, oh no, no, we're not playing. So first we get a pastor to come in per the husband's request, but it kind of felt like throwing marshmallows at a tiger charging at you. Just wasn't effective. And finally I find a pagan high priestess to come in and do a full cleansing of the house. Opening up all the doors, the windows. I mean, having the 4 elements, water, earth, the fire. Like it took like 3 or 4 hours to do. Including, we told the clients, like, you need to bury crystals in the 4 corners of your property. After we're here tonight, you can no longer talk about it because you will invite it back in. And we found out they got a dog and they named it Jezebel. And then but then things were starting back up again. And we're like, okay, well, what can we do about it at this point? So we come back and I look on the kitchen counter and I see the bags of crystals on their counter. And I'm like, you were supposed to bury those 4 corners of your property.
Yeah.
And just the client's lack of follow through was extremely frustrating. And then as we're outside during one of our last visits, their neighbor comes up to me and they said, are you the team that's helping out this family? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, well, our daughter is seeing a witch in her closet. And we go to their daughter's room and we find out that their daughter shared a wall with the son's room. So yeah. So that was probably the craziest client case we had because not only was it darker, I don't like to drop the D word at all because I'm super skeptical of that anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there was definitely something dark and inhuman with that. And it also affected our personal lives. Like it invaded our personal spaces. And that was, that little reminder, like, hey, you're not invincible in this field, no matter how much you know. We were trying our darndest to debunk it. We brought in experts. We brought in like somebody who is a home inspector, like to check the house for like all the things they were reporting. We had brought in a psychic, but they made things worse. So definitely vet the people you bring in too, because the clients will listen.
Yeah.
Clients will listen to the psychic that says, oh, there's fairies in your house, but they won't listen to like the psychologist coming in saying like, hey, there's X, Y, and Z. So it was a crazy experience. Learned a lot from that. And and we weren't able to resolve it. And a lot of that was because of the client not being proactive.
You can't.
But you
gotta walk away.
Yeah, you just got to walk away. And also in that case, we haven't mentioned it yet, have your paperwork really like airtight with like liability, like your liability paperwork and liability release forms. They weren't gonna come after us legally, but they were like, but you didn't finish the job. And it's like, no. This paper you signed? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Have your paperwork really lined up, because you're going into somebody's home and giving them advice, doing some sort of consultative work. You want to make sure you're protected legally. So
but don't make promises that you can't keep. We don't ever make promises. We ask them what their expectations are of the investigation, and then if we can't meet those, we say that's kind of not what we're here for, but we will help you find resolution somehow, maybe, but it may not be with us. And these rituals of cleansing and things, sometimes it's just changing their mindset and getting them out of a negative space, which automatically will make things go away. But if they're not willing to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
all the salt and crystals and everything is not going to make any difference if they're not invested in changing what's happening with
Yep.
them, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
And if it is the D word, as we don't like to say, I mean, Bishop Long said all the crystals and salt in the world is not going to make any difference because they don't care about it. So, but we're not going there. So, John, what is the bucket list place that you want to investigate?
It's hard to tell. I want to investigate everywhere. If I had
John's
to,
on a pickle again.
yeah, I'm on a pickle again. If I had to think of a specific place, man, I don't know. Trans Allegheny is probably on my high list of places that I want to investigate. Of course, Waverly Hills. It's kind of like a bucket list place. I just been reading up on ever since I talked to the owner of Octagon Hall last night. I was like, wow, this place is really cool. I mean, I want to go check out the museum where Robert the Doll is. There's so many places I want to go check out.
Stephen, how about yourself? What's your bucket list place to investigate?
Oh, I'm gonna be like John. You got me on a pickle right now. Let's see. Actually,
That's my
my
code
bucket
word with
list
IT.
place is
It's
probably
pickle.
Waverly Hills. That's John. I have to give John crap, but I'd say Waverly Hills is my bucket list, and that is in a couple months gonna become reality for me and my team, and have a pun day there at Waverly Hills, I believe in March. And other than that, I can't pronounce the word, but whatever that island is in Italy, that I have a friend in Malta. I'm gonna go visit my friend in Malta, and we're gonna take a boat over to that island, and we're gonna check it out.
And I'm going to get my COVID shot, and I will be going with you if you go there. So just be prepared. So, Brad, how about you? Is there a place that you would really love to go investigate?
Well, I mean, for me, it's going to be any place that can give me the data I'm looking for. But I mean, it's if the house next door to me has Casper dancing across the floor, I'll go over there. But the thing that the one place that I'd really like to look at is actually not on probably very many people's bucket list, but there's a little building at a state park that we just looked at. We got asked by the Department of Conservation and Recreation here in Virginia to check out a mansion that was on one of their properties. And so we went down and we conducted all kinds of our experiments there, different lines of research, that kind of thing. But there's a building on the property that we didn't get a chance to do much with. And it's the brick kitchen right next to that thing. It's a brick kitchen. It's 2 stories. It's been there since the 1840s, I think. So we were really believe it or not, I want to go in there because weirdness was happening in there. It sounded like somebody was playing drums on a pot while we were in there. And I'm a drummer, so I was picking up on the rhythm, and I'm like, hey, this isn't mechanical, I don't think. And but it's a neat place, and I'd really like to do that. Besides that, though, I mean, I know Rebecca at Trans Allegheny from a long time ago, but she's not going to let us do anything in there in regards to collecting data because she wants to make some money. But beyond that, though, I'd really like to do just this little brick kitchen right next to the mansion at this state park. That's where I want to go.
Well, Robert, I actually have a place in Alabama you might be interested in.
Well, hit me up about it.
All right. Well,
We never know. We might make a trip. There's 30 of us in our group, so we might be able to make a trip down there.
bring a sleeping bag.
All right.
Brad, when you do an investigation, I know you say you design an experiment, but do you ever keep record of like the atmospheric conditions, like solar, lunar, phases and all that?
Oh, yeah.
For each one, do you do it or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Actually, you can get all the weather conditions from Weather Underground, historic weather conditions for current any location.
Yeah.
And so you can look at that, and you can actually look at it graphically on their website. But what we do is we grab it and we download it into a CSV file, and then we dump that into our database. We got a massive database. We actually to store our raw data, we use Dropbox, and I got 2 terabytes. I'm about to get another 2 terabytes on Dropbox on top of that. And the whole reason we do that is because I have the professional version. And so we could go ahead and we could do all kinds of stuff with that in Dropbox. It's better than Google Drive. It's better than having your own network server because it's in the cloud. But at the same time, we have a text-based database that where all of our notes go and that kind of thing. And that's all cloud-based too, but it's linked to the Dropbox so that you can go back and forth if you want to. And the interesting thing about that is that our database, and a lot of people don't realize this because not very many people do this, our database is open for anybody to look at. If y'all want to look at it, that's fine. We have a read-only access to it, and you can look at anything we've had in there going all the way back to the year 2000. And
can you post that on the GhostEd page? Could you post a link on the GhostEd page?
Well, I mean, you could go in there and look at it. It's just it's all the text-based stuff, but when it's linked to actually hard like recordings and things like that actually you could click on a link within that database. It takes you right to where that is in Dropbox. Now we didn't start using Dropbox until I put it together for them in 2014, I think. So the Dropbox stuff that's in there, only goes to 2014, but all the text-based stuff goes all the way back to the year 2000. So we have that kind of data in there, and we want people to share their data. So that's why we want things that aren't shareable, that aren't viewable to read only are things that clients have told us, or people have told us for some of these historic locations, you can't put this stuff out on the internet. So it's in the database, but it's not viewable by read only. So, but beyond that though, there's a lot of it there. And if we want researchers to use it, we would like people to share their data with us. The problem is that, we follow existing data collection protocols that typically universities and colleges follow. And that the data that we would be able to use would have to follow those same protocols. So that we kind of run into trouble with that sometimes, but there are groups out there that do that. And but we would really like to share our stuff with everybody so that you could take a look-see at it.
Fabulous. There is, I think I posted it some time ago. There's a desktop app, ghostweather.com, and it's great. You can put it right on your desktop, click on it, and it will bring right up everything, what's going on that day, solar rays, x-rays, all that stuff. So just look on GhostEd site. I put the link up somewhere and you can download it to your computer. Alex, what tip would you give for the beginner paranormal investigator, somebody that's just starting out? What's a word of advice you could give them?
Good question. I would say read books. Really, go on Amazon, take a look at, what people are doing. I highly recommend either becoming a member of like the Rhine, looking up what the Rhine Research Center is doing, as well as SPR, ASIP in the UK. Definitely, I'm not a science person. I'm the one who when I read something, I have to look up the meanings of the words that they're using to explain a concept. So definitely just have a yearning to learn and never stop learning. Because even with me, I mean, I've been doing this since I was 16. I'm still learning. I'm still reading books. I'm still taking classes. There's a lot of really great free resources out
Absolutely.
there too, like with Pun TV, Ghost Ed 101. There's a lot of resources out there, and I encourage you to go beyond what you see on mainstream television. So
Absolutely. I have a video on GhostEd on I think on our YouTube channel, my favorite books, if anybody's interested. And the Rhine Institute, Lloyd Auerbach, I can never pronounce his name right.
you got it.
He's getting ready. He's got a great whole series starting coming up on paranormal investigating, all kinds of great topics. And I've done a few of those. They're really, really good. And they're pretty reasonable too, as far as price wise goes. And he's brilliant. He's one of my heroes in the paranormal world. Were there any questions anybody had? I haven't been able to keep up, but Stephen, John, do you see anybody that's got anything they'd like to ask?
I was going
don't get
through a
to
lot
it,
of it. A lot of it was just a lot of chatter.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We'd be more than happy to help answer them for you.
Hey, Linda
Absolutely.
Johnson on the chat said something about do a lot of clients tend not to follow through with the recommendations?
Yes.
And I gotta say, on our end, it's almost all of them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can they understand
'Cause
your
you can't-
recommendation?
Yes.
I probably could.
And you can't fight a belief structure. They're going to believe what they're going to want to believe, regardless of what you tell them. So,
Or they'll find a
you
team that
can't-
validates them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of like what
they
we're
wanna
dealing
hear.
with in the political world nowadays too. So it's like you can't fight a belief system. If the belief system is there, I fight it all the time from the health department standpoint, because the anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers are coming up with the craziest damn things. Pardon my language. And it just floors me how you can't fight a belief structure like that.
And you've got to do your thorough interviews before you even take on a client, because you can weed out some of the crazies beforehand. You can get a feel of people if they're genuinely interested in getting answers, doing what you suggest. I mean, you can get a good feel of that through your interviews and all your questionnaires that they're going to do prior to you even setting up an investigation. But there are some people who are just addicted to the drama, and they just can't let it go sometimes. And you got to know when, like Alex said, you got to walk away sometimes and just know we did what we could do. It's not what they wanted, and move on. You got to know when to just say goodbye, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, we're members of the Taps family, but just because of that, everybody thinks that when we walk through the door, Jason Hawes is going to come in there with us, and that's not the case. It's just unbelievable, and they get so dejected, and they think that they got the B team because Jason's not there, or Steve's not there, or somebody like that's not there. So it's kind of that's where that belief structure comes into play too, because they're gonna they think that we're going to get them on TV, and they refuse to believe anything else. They think that everything we're doing is going to get them on TV, and that is not the case. We're there to do research. We're there for that sole purpose. We're not going to be able to clear your house. We're not going to be able to make anything go away. We're just going to go there, and if anything, we're going to be able to validate what you're seeing, and that's pretty much it. And that's about any of us can do. I mean, we can't go in and tell somebody we're going to clear your house, because what if we can't? What's going to happen? So, and if we go in and start messing around with something that we really don't know, like me, I don't have, a spiritual bone in my body. And if I go in and try to do some kind of house clearing or something like that, what's going to happen? It's just going to be worse. So there's too many people running around out there right now. And another important safety tip, boys and girls, is that if you think that you can go out there and clear a house of something that might be considered malevolent, you got another thing coming. I'm here to tell you, because you won't be able to do it.
It's a battle.
Yeah,
a
everybody just
battle. A
remember to
long,
wear
hard battle.
protection. Yep. Just
Yep.
just
Yeah,
just wear protection.
just remember those 30-minute and 45-minute TV shows that do that. It's entertainment, folks. Just remember that. It's not so much the real world. So if there's no
Well,
other
I can't.
question- Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I can't really speak for anybody else, but like my team and like what Robert was touching on, when my team or my teams, because we have like 6 teams across the country, we go in try to, or we don't go in try to, we go in debunk as much as we
Sure.
can, then go improve
Absolutely.
what we can. So we're trying to find out the answers. We're trying to find out what's causing this. We're not going in there and pointing fingers saying there's a ghost, just like they do on TV or whatever. It's a matter of fact, 9 times out of 10, it's environmental. It's something other than a spiritual activity as well. But yeah, and let's say with Robert, I was on a TEPS team way back in the day, many years ago. Same thing. They thought we were going to bring Jason Hawes and Grant in the house, and they see us show up and they're like, "Who are you?" And we're a TAPS family member team. But yeah, I get it. But like I said, but my whole point is us and being a reputable team is we go in and try to debunk the situation and get you the correct answers than to leave you on a fantasy. I don't want to leave that house with someone having a fantasy or thinking something's there when it's really not.
Yeah, and the people that go around. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, our job, they're calling us because they're afraid. Our job is to calm them down and get them off the ledge with facts.
Yep.
Yeah, we've
help people.
The same thing, that along those same lines, Stephen, is there's a lot of people that think that they might be communicating with something, like they could sit there and go, when they say things like, is there somebody in here with us, and they get a response on a recorder. Yeah, you may not be talking to who you think you're talking to. So it's like, there's a lot of that going on too.
Been there.
And it's like you might be, it's just, I used to say it was like, and you may have seen this posted, Alex, in that National Paranormal Society post. It's almost like you're in a chat room on the internet. You think you're talking to this awesome, guy over here, and you're actually talking to this old fat guy in his underwear on
so you spiritually get catfished.
Yeah,
that's right. And it's and people do that. They think they're talking to these people, and it's like, how the heck do you know that? I mean, you can't know that. There's
I have
no
a funny
way you
story
can
about that.
She had blonde hair,
Alex.
and blue
I want to hear
eyes.
this.
Okay.
I want to hear it, Alex.
Yeah.
So I'm super skeptical of spirit boxes in general, but I've had a couple of weird, fun interactions. But we were at this schoolhouse in Gettysburg, and everyone was saying, "Oh, we're talking to this kid on the spirit box," and no joke, there was a kid's voice coming through, and then this deep voice came in, and then I'm like, "Wait a minute, I thought you were a kid," and the deep voice went, "What? Oh, hello."
Yeah.
I
Go
think
back
one
and
of
look
the,
at
y'all ain't
some,
talking to a kid.
I think one of the funniest interactions I had on a spirit box in a long time was when I was in St. Augustine with Philip. Sorry,
Philip.
Yeah, with Philip, and I remember it goes, "Ha on the spirit box, and I'm looking at him like, "Did you just hear that?"
Laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a quick ha.
I posted it. It's I've got the video online, and you can see it. You said, did that just laugh at us?" I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it when they do that.
Ha.
I love it when they act so human.
Old ITC stuff on my personal YouTube paranormal page, and one of them because I used to do a ton of ITC at home and have friends over, sit around the dining room table, light candles. And one time I got, I'm Zozo. And I said, well, hi, Zozo. I'm Elvis. Nice to meet you. Like, Zozo isn't real, says, if you do your research. But plain as day, I'm Zozo. I was like, oh, good to meet you, Zozo. Make sure nothing happens while I say that. But anyway, we are
thanks for
a little
trying.
bit over. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. And our next panel is February the 3rd. We have Linda Hillard, Renata Danielle, and I can't pronounce her last name, and Cliff Knight. So, yeah, can you say it for me?
Anne Rekovich.
That sounds good. Yep, I would have not gotten it.
Oh, Alex.
No disrespect. I'm Southern. I couldn't say it. All right, everybody. We're going to say goodbye and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.